Welcome into Basketball by Association. That's the name of this here podcast. My name is Arky. That is the always handsome, always bespectacled Joel C. Cortez. Joel, what is up, my friend?
I keep debating whether I should get contacts or not. I just got this weird thing where I'm like poking around with my eye. I've never been able to do them, so we'll see how much longer I'm bespectacled. But thanks for the compliment. Guess what, everybody? This is episode 70.
What?
70, which, I mean, come on, 70 episodes together, and that's just of the full episodes. That doesn't count all the BbA bites we've done. We're probably closer to that 100 mark. It's good stuff. It's
wow, that one sort of petered out, didn't it?
It did, but I'm looking at the 8 different players who have worn number 70
Oh, God, okay.
in the NBA. And, you know, you've got a couple of Minneapolis Lakers to choose from. You've got an Indianapolis Jet, 2 of them actually, to choose from, which is really weird. Actually, this is a nice bit of trivia. You have 2 different Indianapolis Jets from the same year, 1949, that wore number 70. I want to know the story behind that. Did somebody get traded and then the new guy's like, oh, I love that number too?
Oh, I'm so glad you traded him.
Did they just share jerseys? Because, you know, it's 1949 and that is weird. You've got a St. Louis Hawk.
You know what? I bet I got the story on that.
What's
they
that?
tried the whole like hey, number 49's fouled out kind of thing, right? Like you know, or they're like that guy's fouled out. That guy with the curly hair, he's fouled out, and then the other guy comes in same
I
jersey.
want to know why Jack Eskridge and Andy Kosteka both wore number 7 in 1949. Basketball historian out there, someone go figure that out for me. We do have Nemanja Bjelica, who wore 70 this year for the Miami Heat.
Oh, for real?
We got Luigi Datome, who wore number 70 for the Celtics in 2015. But, you know, there's one name on here who wore it, number 70, for such a short period of time, but such an iconic player.
Really?
That I can't not choose Dennis Rodman for the 12 games he played for the Dallas Mavericks during the 99-2000 season when he was 38. And he wore number 70. Dude still, in those 12 games, averaged 3 points and, hold your breath, 14 rebounds per game, still at age 38, but it was not enough to save his NBA career. He had appeared with the Lakers for one season before that. Remember, after he left the Bulls, he followed Phil Jackson to the Lakers, where he appeared in 23 games. He started 11, washed out from them, played 12 with the Mavericks, and then I think was playing like the Long Beach Summer League or something like that the following year after that. But yeah, this is the Dennis Rodman asterisk Dallas Mavericks episode.
I just was watching some kind of video not series sort of thing. Like, it was basically just a story about Dennis Rodman, or a handful of stories about Dennis Rodman and coming to the Mavericks, and how much Mark Cuban wanted him badly to be in Dallas. Dallas was awful. Right. Like when he was coming in, and he went to players, he thought, and he went to the coach and was like, hey, you guys want Dennis Rodman? And they were just like, no, we don't. And he was like, it'll be all right.
There was still that idea that, yeah, he's been on championship teams and, you know, he's going to be able to bring something, but at 38, and then with all of the baggage that had accrued for all of those years mentally.
And by the way, he was baggage when he was there. Right. It's not like he stopped being Dennis Rodman. Like, he continued being Dennis Rodman, this time just with a different zip code.
Yeah, well, and the talent and production, even at 14 rebounds a game, I do remember him, like, his defensive numbers were just awful by that point. It's odd that I know that, but the talent could not match the level of headaches anymore. It just wasn't worth it. And remember that the Bulls were one of the only teams out there at that time willing to take a risk on Rodman because they thought they had the hierarchy to actually contain him. And it only worked for 3 years. Like, the Spurs were ready to give up on him. There were a lot of teams at that time before all this happened with the Lakers and the Mavericks that just knew they wouldn't be able to handle him. And so for the Mavericks, a terrible team to take a chance on a guy like that, you absolutely don't have anyone with enough cachet on that type of roster to rein in Rodman when he is at his squirreliest by this point.
Man, so
we're 5 minutes in. We should probably talk free agency.
Rodman, we'll see if we can do it. Rodman, Dennis, we'll see if we can do a little justice for you in the asterisk episode for you for the Dallas Mavericks. Okay, so free agency is going to start this week, actually, and we will find out certain decisions that will at least begin to be made as far as who the top free agents are. We have sort of a running idea of who the names are. But I think I want to start with not just the top one, but the first one that sort of got a qualifying offer was John Collins with the Atlanta Hawks. And I wanted to talk about like what we thought these players might do, whether it's we'll get to it. What these players might do, right? And so normally you start with the two bigger names, not named John Collins, but John Collins was the first one to get a qualifying offer, and he'll be the first one to sort of test free agency a little bit. That means the Hawks get Mavericks. The Hawks get I think 48 or 72 hours to match the offer if they want to. His number for the qualifying offer is like $8 million or so. He's going to test the waters and turn down that qualifying offer. So John Collins, big money John Collins coming up. I mean, we don't have a very deep free agency pool this offseason.
No, we don't.
There's going to be some teams that want him.
John Collins is a nice NBA player who you think can be nicer because he still has youth on his side. But I lump him squarely into the level of like a Tobias Harris or a Chris Middleton. And Middleton did get paid near max money, and so did Harris. But if either of those are your lead guys on a team, you are in big, big, big trouble. And even as a second wheel, like how good is Chris Middleton as a second wheel on a lot of teams if he doesn't have a player of Giannis's caliber right next to him? Tobias Harris is the third wheel, sort of, in Philadelphia, depending on whether Ben Simmons wants to pass the ball or actually shoot point blank at the basket or not. But Harris has had plenty of opportunities, whether it was in Detroit or the Clippers before this, to prove that he is not the guy. And so to me, a guy like John Collins, you don't break the bank for. Yeah, he would make some sense with Dallas. He would make some sense with Minnesota. He could make some sense with like Golden State if they moved on from Kelly Oubre or did a sign and trade. Collins is a nice player who would fit in a lot of different places with a lot of different teams, but you don't max money a guy like that. You let someone else make that mistake, and then maybe you swoop in and you get John Collins a year later, but you get a draft pick for your troubles because maybe you're going to wind up paying him that much, but it's a year less on the contract. You got a sweetener with it. You keep an eye on Collins and see if he lives up to that contract, but there's no way John Collins is a guy that we're going to be looking back on 4 years from now going, I can't believe that team didn't lock him down. I can't believe they didn't bring him in. So good player, but he'll make maybe an all-star game or two in his career.
So if you're Atlanta, you're okay with letting him walk?
I'm okay with letting him walk depending on the numbers, but if it's a reasonable offer, then I go, yeah, he makes a lot of sense here. He's a good player. I don't want him to walk unless somebody's handing him stupid money. But if somebody's handing him stupid money, yes, I let him walk and I turn DeAndre Hunter into my small ball power forward instead.
I don't hate that idea. Power names in this free agency class would be Kawhi Leonard, one of them. He's got a player option, though, so he could choose to stay with the Los Angeles Clippers. Do you think he does that?
I think with him dealing with a knee injury and that sort of thing, I would take the player option, but who knows what in the world Kawhi Leonard thinks on anything. And he's surprised us before. He'd go
to Toronto.
Yeah. So, I mean, if he is unhappy with the Clippers and ready to move on again, and the team that keeps being brought up is the Miami Heat, of course, whether that's just wishful thinking on their part or there actually is something to that rumor, who knows? That would be the possibility, but I would think he probably takes the player option for the year and then renegotiates. But maybe, if he really is feeling that the knee is an issue, he's looking for a longer term deal regardless. And whichever team is willing to give him the longest contract and the most money, maybe that's the one he does, because these knee injuries for him really do seem to be like a chronic thing now, that he might be a ticking time bomb as far as like his longevity in the NBA at a high level. And if you're the player, you cash in on that as quick as you can. You bet on yourself in that way.
Yeah, he actually just turned 30, so like he's
Right.
no pure spring chicken in the pure sense of the form, and he's got a lot of playoff miles on him too.
Mm-hmm.
Like not everyone's just LeBron doesn't get hurt ever, doesn't miss a ton of games ever. Like,
and he's got a couple of rings already as well. So I mean, climbing that mountaintop, he's done. So get your money, get the bag.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think because of the uncertainty of the knee, I'd go one more year, see how that thing heals, see what's going on, take that player option, get that money. I think Kawhi Leonard will come back fine, or relatively close to what he was. That way he will be able to get even one more probably giant bag of money for like a longer term deal, or 3 or 4 year deal, longer term, 3 years that they do with the player option for the third year kind of thing, which is kind of what these superstars do now, right? Like they'll give you 2 years with an option for a third, and you're like, oh, so you give me 48 hours to basically build a super team or you're out. Okay, good. Chris Paul is a huge name out of this. We referenced him a couple episodes ago in the decision he's got to make. It's a player option for his free agency. Joel, lots of immediate talk after he lost about hooking up with his buddy LeBron and going to LA. They don't have a lot of money room, but listen, I feel like teams get around these kind of moves all the time anyway financially. But if you're Chris Paul, you come back for one more, you run it back for one more year with the Phoenix Suns, or do you try to go to a team that you should have gone to years and years ago? Thanks, David Stern. Do you try and go for, at this age, one more real decent shot at the ball?
If I'm Chris Paul, it would be silly to leave the Suns for a team that embraced you, that wanted you, that clearly played so well with you, that is young and is built to continue growing around you and just maturing and blossoming around you, while you get to kind of fade back at a comfortable pace to still be a big minute guy, a super important guy, but not an overtaxed guy. The expectations in Phoenix obviously are going to be high, but it's not going to be like the crushing expectations that if you went to the Lakers or to the Knicks or something like that. It's just different. So if I was Chris Paul, I would know that I got a good thing going, and I would ask for like a 2-year big money deal. And if I'm the Suns, I pay Chris Paul 2 years of big money, but I don't sign him to a 3 or 4 year deal. And if that's insulting to Chris Paul, if he's asking for a 3-4 year deal, then if I'm the Suns, I might say thanks, but no thanks. Let's let somebody else give you those 4 years. I doubt you'll make as much money. And if they do, if somebody signs you to a 4-year deal, Chris Paul, when you're 36, you're going to be stuck on a bad team, and your last couple of years, you're going to be bouncing around the league as cap ballast, and it's not going to be much fun for you. So you either stay here and get your money now, and we're all cool and copacetic with this, but if you really want out, then your heart really wasn't here in Phoenix anyway. And I think you test them a little bit.
Yeah, I knew the number was stupid before I looked it up. $44 million he's due for his last year. If he takes that player option, that's a ton of money to sort of. Well,
I mean, I talk extension. I offer him the 1 year. If I was Paul, I would take the 1 year and then reevaluate. But again, when you're 36 and you don't know any of these years could be your last year, taking that money now versus a 2-3 year deal may not actually be the smarter way to go about it,
And he gets banged up a lot. He may, it's not, I find it interesting when sort of these super teams try to put the super giant number guys and sort of make room for them, right? Like as far as financially, that you end up with like 2 beanbag chairs as the 2 other guys who are out there on the court with you. But like Chris Paul's got a really tough decision here, because what he did with Phoenix was great. And throughout the season, when everybody wasn't hurt, it was great. the playoffs sort of came to them a little bit with some of the injuries. And I can see Chris Paul keeping that year in Phoenix if they do what we've been talking about, getting another big who's got some offense for him, that might be able to take them to the next level if Chris Paul feels like that's something that they can do. Then I probably would stay at Phoenix if I felt that that was something that they were going to be able to address. If not, I mean, listen, LeBron's his buddy. They go back for like 20 years or something like that. They go like
that is the X factor. If you're Chris Paul and you're going, look, I could stay and I like the Suns. I love what we had. We have a chance to win a title. Or I could go play with my buddy while I still have a chance to and maybe make better money there, whatever. And I'm still going to have a chance at a title. That is a tough decision. Like, you've accomplished, if you're Chris Paul, you have accomplished everything in the league except win that title and except play with your buddies. And you probably have an equally good chance going to a Lakers team that'll be loaded or staying with a Suns team that is super talented and up and coming. It's probably a fair wash. And again, Chris Paul is not the only like aging all-star caliber point guard who's going to be on the market for somebody like the Lakers. So I don't think he can dilly-dally with a decision like this either, because Mike Conley, Kyle Lowry, I think they're both in those boats in Utah and Toronto, respectively, where they make a lot of sense to stay. And both of those teams would be wise to offer them a shorter deal with maybe a little bit more money involved. And if that's insulting to either of those players where they want that 3-4 year deal, if I'm the Jazz or the Raptors, I'm probably let either of those guys walk and go chase that longer deal elsewhere, because I don't think they're going to age well into it. Conley's only 33. He seems like he's older, but he's been a guy that's been dinged up a lot. And Kyle Lowry is 35, is undersized. We know he's really savvy, but we also know he's kind of a touch-and-go three-point shooter and one of those guys who could fall off the cliff really quick. And Chris Paul's got his own injury issues. So I am not comfortable at that point with a mid-30s point guard in a league that is awash in really good point guards to hand that guy a long-term deal that hamstrings the rest of my building project. I'm not.
Well, let's get to him real quick, since you already gotten a lot on him just now. The frequently trade baited Kyle Lowry is, people talked about like signing or trading for him and then signing him afterwards. Well, now he's a free agent, so he can go to just about anywhere he wants to. Do you think he is going to stay in Toronto after being held up as bait, or do you think he finds a home somewhere else?
I think he becomes the Chris Paul backup plan for the Lakers, or he winds up in Miami if they strike out on a lot of different guys. I think Kyle Lowry takes a huge pay cut to go wherever he goes. He's a Philly native, so they've been rumored before as well, although I'm only looking at Kyle Lowry if I'm Philly, if I know that I'm going to make that Ben Simmons trade that, there's all those rumors that are out there. I could trade Ben Simmons and know that I've got Kyle Lowry for a year or two, Shake Milton in the mix and Tyrese Maxey in the mix. I've got good insurance on that. I'm okay with that if I'm the Sixers. But I think if you're Kyle Lowry, your place in Toronto, your legacy is set forever.
It is.
You are set. You won that championship. You were there longer than anybody else. You've given the city everything. The Raptors are going to be an also-ran again. Nobody in Canada is going to hold it against you. There's nobody who's going to burn a Kyle Lowry jersey. And most of that's because the Canadians are so nice. But no one's going to be ticked off if you do that. You've earned the right to go ring chase one more time or a couple more times. And I think he takes a big pay cut to do that.
What about Mike Conley?
Conley is such a weird one because it is a good situation for him. He's shown when he's healthy, he can do it, but he's been so infrequently healthy for long periods of time in Utah that I think the Jazz might also be going, what are the options we have here? We know they're not a free agent destination, even with Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert. So I think the number there really has to make sense for both parties. Like, Conley has to be relatively content in Utah, not wanting to take a huge pay cut, maybe knowing that if he goes somewhere else, he's not going to get more minutes, that sort of thing. And the Jazz have got to be the Jazz have got to ask for a pay cut from him. There's no way I think he earns $30 million plus again. And if that's really what he wants, if I'm the Jazz, I let him walk and I continue to develop. I continue to be savvy, because we've seen that, like, when Conley was hurt, Joe Ingles was handling the point. Donovan Mitchell was handling the point. Jordan Clarkson handled some of those minutes. You just need to get another guy to eat some of those minutes in there, and you already have built-in options, even if none of those others are pure point guards, so to speak.
You made $34.5 million this last season,
right?
I
don't want to hand Mike Conley that money again.
Hey, listen, you got a bag, right? The last 3 years got you over $100 million. We're gonna have to take a pay cut if you want to stay here. We'll still pay you. We won't let you do it for free. You're just gonna have to bring it down a notch.
Right. I'm cool. I mean, other names that are out there if Mike Conley leaves. You got other guys who are middle-aged who are going to be so much cheaper, and I kind of think their production may be in the same neighborhood. You got Goran Dragic, you got Patty Mills hanging out there. You're going to have a lot of young point guards to take a look at, either to trade for around the draft. Maybe you try to make a run at Lonzo Ball, who it's really up in the air whether whether the Pelicans are going to match a big deal for him. I would much rather pay Lonzo Ball Mike Conley money. It'll still be cheaper because he's that much younger. I'd rather pay Lonzo Ball $20 million a year, in all honesty, than I would to pay Mike Conley $28 million a year.
Yeah. And Lonzo, I think, is restricted
right
for this year. So,
but what will the Pelicans actually match as the magic number, and will they match anything? Because there's been rumors that they were thinking about just letting him go, which is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
When you've got a restricted free agent who's only 23 and hasn't done anything wrong at either of his two stops.
But it's smart to send the qualifying offer to him, don't you think? I think
so. Yeah,
it just makes sense. Two more names I want to get to fairly quickly because I don't think there's nearly as much meat on the bones for them. Although I think they're very interesting. DeMar DeRozan is going to be a free agent this offseason. Joel, a couple minutes on DeMar DeRozan. What do you think? Sort of is a decision that he can sort of make it in a style that makes sense for DeMar DeRozan at this point in his career?
DeMar DeRozan is gone. I don't think there's any way he returns to San Antonio, not because he had a bad run or a bad experience. I think everybody's been happy with each other, but San Antonio's stuck in the middle of the road. They have to get younger. They've got to keep developing these young guys. And if the current crop of young guys aren't good enough, they may have to go into, a mini tank. But his future is not in San Antonio. He's not going to get paid that same amount of money, but he can still get a pretty nice check elsewhere and maybe that longer deal. DeMar DeRozan is 32. So he's exactly in that age where you go, I want the 4-year deal to ensure that I make it past my mid-30s and I'm locked in, and I'm willing to maybe, if the best I can do is to shave a couple million off of what I made on my previous deal, fine, because DeRozan is not really a perennial all-star guy anymore. He's been very good. He keeps getting more and more efficient in a lot of ways, but he's in that same tier as John Collins, Tobias Harris, Chris Middleton, and maybe even a notch below. We don't know because he's been asked to be a number one for so long in his career. But I think you let him explore those options. And again, do you take a massive pay cut to go to the Lakers or Brooklyn or Miami to truly chase that ring? Because DeMar DeRozan was this close to getting that ring. He's 1 year away in Toronto, and then he leaves and win the Kawhi Leonard trade and misses out. So, and DeRozan is a really cerebral, really heady guy. It's hard to know whether money and that security is most important, or what does a ring even mean to him? Because some guys, and there's nothing wrong with this, some guys in the NBA go, yeah, championship would be nice, but that doesn't define who I am as a person. That's not going to define my career or my experience, all of that stuff. And that's their absolute prerogative too. So I think there is a 0% chance that DeRozan returns with the Spurs. I think he doesn't take the bag to sign with a bad team, though.
Let me ask you this. By the way, still a very effective wing, and one of the quietest 20-10 seasons in the entire NBA this season, because as you mentioned, the Spurs are just weren't very good this year, and they're building around young talent. I've read stuff about a possible sign and trade, especially with Los Angeles, that the Spurs re-sign him and they try to get someone like a Kyle Kuzma or something and be able to, try and get something back out of this. That obviously, someone who's still very, very, very talented. If they can manage something like that the Spurs might be able to continue to sort of add to their coffers, so to speak, and be out from underneath DeMar DeRozan and the kind of money that he might want.
If you're the Spurs and you can get that, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Final thing I wanted to mention is Victor Oladipo. That is a situation that I find extremely interesting because a guy who's been very good, but very hurt. He's currently hurt, and we're not quite sure what next season is sort of going to be for him, or even when it's going to start for him.
Right. And he's 29.
Yeah, like as much as sort of we keep talking about how he's young, and he's not old by any stretch, but like he's got them surgery miles, right? Like he has got these injury miles that he is so bright when he's on and not hurt. But how often is that? So what kind of situation do you think sort of makes sense for Victor Oladipo? And who would you, if you were a team, which team do you think would be the one that should, be sniffing around the Victor Oladipo situation? Because he may have to take like a the mid-level like exception or something.
Yeah, Victor Oladipo is going to be offered a 1-year deal. He is firmly in DeMarcus Cousins territory from a few years back, where you have to be able to prove you can play. Our doctors have to get a look at you, and then if you got something in the tank, there may be a future for you here, but you got to prove that. So there are teams out there that have been willing to take flyers on guys like that. If Oladipo was willing to, he probably isn't going to go back to Miami, but that's a team that's taken risks on guys like that. Dallas is a team that takes risks like that. Toronto is in a place where, especially if like Lowry leaves and you got a little bit of money, I think it's going to be a mid-level team, a 1-year deal, maybe mid-level exception type of money, but it's going to be a prove it sort of year. I don't think any team with true championship aspirations is going to be willing to risk that on him because you have to sign a guy that can contribute. But a team that's kind of in that middle of the road and uncertain, like where Victor's career is, that's who's going to take a look. Because the truly bad teams, that's not going to make sense for him to go either.
I think the team you mentioned that makes the most sense, and it was going to be my number one destination, just sort of ballparking it, was Dallas. I really like Dallas as sort of a potential situation for him, and to see if he can get healthy, stay healthy, and sort of contribute to a team that, again, is young, trying to keep fighting into the playoffs and get better and better and better, and also to be a little bit of veteran stability there for Dallas. So I think Dallas makes a lot of sense to give him that offer. Whether or not he'd have others, I'm sure there'd be a couple others that he'll be able to choose from. But he's not going to make as much money as he could if he'd obviously not been able to sustain all these injuries throughout the. Feels like the breadth of his career at this point, right? Like it just, yeah. Oh well. All right, so those are top free agents that we have that we seem sort of coming out this off season. A couple restricted, a couple non-restricted, some qualifying offers, a little bit of sign and trade talk. Very briefly from Joel's end, by the way. Very solid contribution of if I was the Spurs, I'd do it. Anywho, Joel,
riveting and deep.
That is going to do it for the Dennis Rodman asterisk episode of this here BbA Bite. Hey, we're still in the off season, bro. How can people watch this?
Episode 70 is in the books. You can find us on YouTube. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And you want the audio only version, we are on iTunes, Spotify, Spreaker, wherever you get your podcast. And of course, we're going to continue to cover a lot of these players as they sign. We'll talk NBA draft fallout and all of that stuff too, because really the draft is where you start to get those puzzle pieces into this free agent stuff. And we're getting to all that stuff. So
yeah, we'll talk about the guys who were just drafted and
exactly
the free agency stuff once we get to free agency, which is Thursday or something.
Mm-hmm.
Am I doing that right? It's Friday. It's Friday. My bad. It's the 6th, right? I think it's the 6th is when it starts. So, anywho's, guys, I hope you guys have a great day. And that includes Joel, the bespeckled one.
Despite me. All right. See ya.